With us now, as President Bola Tinubu marks 2 years in office, many Nigerians say series of structural reforms and sector-specific initiatives aimed at stabilizing the nation's macroeconomy, expanding access and to finance and accelerating inclusive development has begun to take firm root on the economy. Now, according to the World Bank, under President Bola Tinubu's administration, Nigeria's economy achieved its fastest growth in 10 years, 2024. Key milestone of the president's achievements includes unification of the foreign exchange market, establishment of regional development commissions, new education financing and credit access schemes targeting investments in health and human capital, and a renewed push into the blue economy and resurgent investors' confidence, opening up new funds in oil and gas, energy, mining, and agriculture, to list just a few. Well, let's talk more about this, break down these achievements, and see what the prospects are moving forward. I have the renowned economist and vice president at the Abuja Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu. Dr. Ikechukwu, thank you so much for your time, for your patience. It's good to have you this Monday afternoon.
Thank you very much, Tolu.
Yes, I'm sure you heard my intro, and I was reeling out some of the initiatives instituted or policies instituted by this administration. I want you to give an overview of what you've seen. We started this conversation long ago, Dr. Kichuku, before the removal of subsidy, before the unification of the exchange rate, and where we are at the moment. I'd like your understanding of this to kickstart our conversation this afternoon.
Okay, at the commencement of this particular government, the first decision that was taken, the first major decision that was taken was the removal of subsidy of petroleum products. Many of us expected that that should have been done, and that it was done. Because at that time, a lot of malpractices were going on in that particular sector, and people were claiming subsidy that they didn't even provide for. So that was done. So it was actually meant to sanitize that particular industry. And shortly after then, of course, there was this unification of the FS rates. That was also very necessary to be done. Of course, for subsidy actually made a lot of money available for government to do a lot of projects and to do many other things, because government remained under pressure to pay subsidy funds to the so-called importers of petroleum products. And then at the position of putting together, unifying the FS rates, it became necessary because there was a lot of arbitraging and the speculations going on in that sector. And so a lot of monies were received from the government sector, government rates, and then sold in the open market, and people were really speculating a lot in that area. So that has actually taken care of that area in terms of stabilizing that particular market. Again, you know that before that particular government, this government came in, there were a lot of backlogs of payments to be done to many sectors, especially the aviation industry. Our aviation industry almost collapsed because of that backlog, and many other sectors. The very worrisome was the fact that most of our letters of credits were not being honored because of the backlog, because of our inability to meet obligations of letters of credit. And so these were all cleared, and we cleared about $7 billion worth of backlog. I think that was a very positive thing that happened. And, you know, so many things have actually happened since then. And as we progressed, we started reading about the positive balance of trade that has happened up to the tune of 6.95 trillion naira. Balance of trade positive meant a lot to us because we've been having this deficit in balance of trade for many years. So these are many more things. And of course, for this particular end of last year, last quarter, our GDP growth grew up to 3.84%. It's against about 2.4, 2.7, and even against the prediction and of World Bank and IMF. So these are some of the positive things we are seeing. And of course, within the period also, we experienced a net foreign reserve that rose from 3.99, which was frightening at that time, to $23.11 billion. Such a positive thing. So there are a lot of things happening in the money market and fiscal, monetary policy area, and then the fiscal area, and then a lot of other things going on in other sectors of the economy. Of course, you just finished discussing with the man on railway, and a lot of other things happening in other areas.
Dr. Ikechukwu, let me follow up and ask you this question. We've been following all of these figures. IMF's been, talking pretty well about our figures, what they've seen. We are attracting investors and all of it. But some would ask that after taking care of some of these macro issues, the issues around how it trickles to the man on the street is what some are worried about. The fallout of subsidy removal increased the price of PMS. And obviously, people are paying more for transportation, paying more for food, and all of it. So I like to ask, how do we balance this up so that the man on the street can also feel the impact? Yes, many on the street also agree that subsidies should be removed. And they also believe that this foreign exchange issues, but they think about the impact on them. What do you think, or what should have been done, or what should be done as we move forward?
So do you know that when you cut a tree, even 3 days after cutting that tree, the leaves will still be looking green, and nobody will know the tree has been cut. So once there is reform, it will take a while before the benefits of those reforms will come back to the population of Nigeria. And so what we're having now is just to stabilize the economy. All the things that have happened are to stabilize the economy. For example, if we continue to save money from the subsidy that was done, and that money is plowed back into education, the money is plowed back into good health, and plowed back into researches in universities, that's going to be a ripple. It's going to create a ripple effect in the growth of the economy. And gradually, of course, the system will be stimulated, and of course the GDP will start growing, and of course the per capita income will increase, poverty will gradually be reduced. So because these reforms are happening now, the outcomes and the benefits of those reforms may not be felt right now by the man on the street. But I can tell you, in the long run, that is what is going to happen. But right now, it may not happen, and people are not going to feel it because we're still at this, staggering. Of course, it will take a while for these things to happen. That's actually what is going on.
Now, Dr. Ikechukwu, states and local governments are getting more revenue. I think the last I checked, about 62% increase in some cases. We have state governments getting more allocation from FAC. Now, what sort of initiatives, or what are you expecting from the state government? They need to complement whatever is happening at the top. That's whatever the federal government is doing. If the states are getting more revenue, more funding from government, they need to also initiate policies or, programs that will trickle down to the people. How do we push this? Because many times, everything that happens, everyone just talks about the top, the presidency. So how do we start to make people understand that more is expected from our state governments and our local governments? Because their funds have increased, more than what it used to be.
Yeah, over the years, you know that I'm one of the advocates of the fact that the states must be productive. When the funds for the states were increased, everybody was happy, but I wasn't excited because I knew that we didn't have a control over how those funds were going to be used. If we have a good collaboration from the states and local government areas, especially the states for now, if we have good collaboration and everybody is committed, every government of the state is committed to what should turn around their state, making the states run like strategic business units where you have to determine your own profit and loss, then you see that everybody will sit up. Agriculture is that which every state can really do and take advantage of the kind of crops and the kind of agricultural produce they can do from their own area. And if everybody has enough of their product, like where we have enough yam in the middle belt, we have enough palm oil in the east, and then enough cocoa and enough sesame seed from the north, you see that we are going to have self-sufficiency. And when we do, the pressure on the federal government will reduce. And so the same thing we talk about agricultural produce, the same thing we talk about IGRs and many other areas, many other sectors, schools that are within the states. The states should actually deploy more money into running the affairs of the states. But that's not what we're seeing. So we're seeing situations where most of those funds are not being accounted for, and there is no check and balance from the federal or even check and balance from the state assemblies to know how these funds are being deployed. That's the unfortunate aspect of the government that we have.
Well, let's shift our focus to agriculture and see what is playing out. We see a bit of drop food inflation, and many say as we approach the harvest season, it could get better, talking about pricing, because once a man can feed and eat, a bit of pressure is eased out of that human being. So what sort of agricultural policies, if we look at what we have, we used to have the likes of the anchor borrower schemes, but I don't think that really helped us go get where we're supposed to get to. We have lots of loans out there. We are not paid back to the Central Bank of Nigeria. So how can we develop capacity? Yes, I know we have issues with security, but in places where farming is still going on, how can we increase capacity?
Apart from FCT, everybody that is domiciled in this country is domiciled in a particular state, just like we say. And if we have enough of growth of agricultural production, agro-based production, and all of them happening in various states, you see that nobody's going to be talking about food insecurity in the country. Now, there is little that the federal government is expected to do, really, if every state takes food production very seriously in their states. The reason I say this is because people are within their states, and every state can grow one thing or the other. Yes, you mentioned the issue of insecurity. Some states that would have produced a lot of what they were known to produce can no longer produce because of insecurity. But there are some other states that even when you have insecurity, you can have what is called the green farm areas, where you just within the particular green farm, you just grow whatever thing you want to grow. Imagine if we have that all over the states and all of them are growing whatever thing they can grow. The market will be flooded with a lot of agricultural produce. And so we need to see how we can encourage the states to keep growing, because the federal government can only mobilize situations that will make them grow. Otherwise, there's no place. There are no farmers in federal. Where we have farmers are in the states. And so, but the policy of government, or federal government, should be able to enhance the particular growth in agricultural produce. So that onus lies on the states actually to grow agricultural produce, while the federal government brings out the policies that are going to encourage all those to happen and probably provide certain facilities, like you mentioned. The first one that was done, it had some results, but didn't work well because the anchor borrowers program was a failure because of monitoring. And again, the money entered the wrong hands of people who were not really growers and things like that.
Well, finally, before I let you go, moving forward, what are your thoughts with regards to expectations from all of these policies, like we've highlighted as we started this conversation? You know, you've talked about the timing and all of that, but I think Nigerians would like to know, short to medium term, what are the quick wins for us? You know, they would like to really get to know all of this. So moving forward.
All right, for me.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, the quickly are the fact that we have a particular sector that we are not tapped in, and we can actually make a lot of money from that sector, which is the mining industry, the mining sector, a solid mineral sector. We can have our quick wins from there and take that sector as seriously as we have taken oil sector and expect that monies will come from there. The gas sector, again, you know, we had this balance of trade, positive balance of trade, just because the gas sector grew. So if the gas sector can grow, that means we can actually do more in that sector and expect that more revenue will come to the coffers of government in that area. Again, in revenue coming from inland revenues and the federal inland revenues, we're also not optimizing what we're supposed to get from people. There is an informal group. Informal group are not those ones that we call the artisans, no. The informal group are the guys who are making their money from the cloud, all the TikTok and all the bloggers and all the musicians and artists and all those guys. The funds in that sector we have not started tapping, and they are paying nothing to the treasury of the country. There must be technology that can tap all that they are making in all those sectors. And once we do that, we're going to be having all these funds, revenues coming from various sectors. And like you said, agricultural sector, we need to continue to expand what we're already doing in that sector for us to have enough revenue. Otherwise, we are on a growth trajectory. And once we sustain it and maintain stability, we are going to go somewhere. We need to be a little patient.
I remember the IMF saying we must stay the course. We must not go back. We must stay the course and follow this to the end of it. In 2 minutes, what would you say about monetary policy as we move on? It's almost July. We're in June already, and the next meeting is in July. What are you thinking ahead of that?
Of course, the monetary policy has lent to stabilize and to hold in order for certain rates to remain. But I think we need to be getting to a point where we start reducing the monetary policy rates gradually, because we also expect that the inflation rate is coming down. But of course, in our own case, you see, the more the monetary policy rate remains high, inflation will just remain as high. Even when we try to use the monetary policy rate to cow the inflation rate, the two of them are just fighting against each other. So what we need to do actually is just to start dropping the monetary policy rate so that even pressure on the money market can start coming down, because it's still very high up there. Borrowing rates are still very high, and if borrowing rates are high, it's going to affect the kind of access to funds that we are going to have to grow every sector. So we need to start slowing down the monetary policy rates.
Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, renowned economist and Vice President, Abuja Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for your insights. We appreciate this.
Thank you very much, Tolu.